I still keep that envelope in the drawer beside my bed. Sometimes I take it out just to remind myself that none of this was something I imagined, that it really happened, that the life I thought I knew for 76 years turned out to be something else entirely, something I should have seen coming if only I had been paying attention. If only I had asked the right questions instead of protecting the answers I wanted to hear. My name is Margaret Elizabeth Dawson. I live at 1743 Brookfield Lane in Naperville, Illinois, and what I am about to tell you is how my daughter showed me a truth so shattering that I will never see my family the same way again. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late March when Caroline came through my front door carrying that brown paper bag. Nothing fancy, nothing that looked important, just a plain grocery bag folded at the top like she had picked up milk and bread. But the way she held it, the way her fingers pressed into the paper, I knew before she even set it down on my kitchen table that whatever was inside was going to change everything. She did not say hello, did not ask how I was feeling, or comment on the daffodils I had just planted along the walkway. She just stood there in my kitchen with her coat still on and her eyes fixed on that bag like it contained something alive, something dangerous. I remember the light coming through the window that day. Pale spring light that made everything look washed out and too bright at the same time. I remember the hum of the refrigerator and the faint smell of the lemon polish I had used on the table that morning. I remember thinking how ordinary everything looked, how nothing in that moment suggested that my entire understanding of my family was about to collapse. Caroline was always my quiet one, my observer, the child who watched more than she spoke. But that day, she looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger exactly, not fear. Something closer to resolve. Like she had made a decision that cost her something, and now she was going to see it through no matter what it did to either of us. She set the bag down, did not open it, just placed it there between us like it was evidence in a trial I did not know I was part of. Then she looked at me and said the words that still echo in my head every single night. Before you open this, I need you to promise me something. When you see what is inside, do not try to explain it away. Do not tell me I misunderstood. Do not defend anyone. Just listen. Just believe me. I felt my stomach drop. That feeling you get when you know something terrible is coming and there is no way to stop it. I nodded. I promised. And she finally sat down across from me at the table, where we had eaten 1,000 meals together. That bag sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only a minute. Neither of us touched it. Neither of us spoke. The refrigerator hummed. The clock on the wall ticked. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. And I thought to myself, how strange it is that the world keeps moving forward, even when your life is about to split in two. Caroline reached into the bag slowly. Her hands were shaking. I noticed that. My daughter, who never showed weakness, never let anyone see her afraid. Her hands were trembling as she pulled out a small stack of papers held together with a binder clip. She set them in front of me. On top was a photocopy of a medical record. Beneath that were printed emails. Beneath that were photographs I could not make sense of at first glance. And beneath all of it was something else. An envelope, sealed, with my name written on the front in Caroline's handwriting. She did not let me open anything yet. Instead, she took a breath and said, "Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to stay calm while I say it. I have been carrying this for a long time, years, and I did not tell you because I did not know how. I did not know if you would believe me. I did not know if it would destroy you. But I cannot keep carrying it alone anymore. Not now. Not with what is about to happen." My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I reached across the table and took her hand. It was cold. She looked down at our hands together and then back up at me with tears in her eyes that she refused to let fall. She said, "I am pregnant, Mom. And before you ask, I am keeping the baby. But that is not why I am here. That is not what this is about." I did not understand. I said congratulations, even though the word felt strange in my mouth. I asked if she was okay, if she needed anything, if the father knew. She pulled her hand back. She shook her head. She said the father knows, Mom. He has always known. And that is the problem. I stared at her. I still did not understand. She reached for the envelope, the sealed one. She slid it across the table toward me. Her voice was so quiet I almost could not hear her. She said, "This is a DNA test. I had it done 2 weeks ago. When you open it, you are going to see the name of the father. And when you see it, you are going to want to tell me I am wrong. You are going to want to find another explanation. But there is not one mom. There is only the truth. And the truth is that everything you think you know about this family is a lie." My hands were shaking now, too. I picked up the envelope. It was thin, light, just a single sheet of paper inside. I looked at Caroline. She nodded. I opened it. I unfolded the paper. I read the name at the top under paternal match, and the world stopped. The name on that paper was not a stranger. It was not some boyfriend I had never met. It was not someone from her past I had forgotten about. The name on that paper was someone I saw every single day. Someone who sat at my dinner table. Someone who slept under my roof. Someone I trusted more than anyone in the world. Someone I had built my entire life around. I read the name again and again, trying to make it mean something different, trying to find the mistake. But there was no mistake. The name was clear. The percentage was clear. 99.97% probability of paternity. I looked up at Caroline and I could not breathe. I could not think. I could not do anything except stare at her and try to understand how this was possible. She was watching me, waiting. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She said, "I know, Mom. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking there has to be another explanation. You are thinking I made a mistake, or someone else made a mistake, or this is fake. But it is not. I had it done twice. 2 different labs. Same result. I have been living with this for 6 years, and I did not tell you because I did not want to be the one who destroyed your life. But now I am pregnant, and I cannot raise this child in a family built on silence." She stood up. She lifted her shirt just enough for me to see the small curve of her belly. She said, "This baby deserves the truth, Mom, and so do you." I was still holding the paper. My vision was blurring. My hands were numb. Caroline sat back down. She pulled the stack of documents closer and started going through them one by one. Medical records from when she was 22, therapy notes, emails she had saved, photographs with timestamps. She walked me through it all, slowly, carefully, like she was testifying in a courtroom. And with every piece of evidence she laid in front of me, I felt the walls of my carefully constructed life crumbling. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a mistake. This was real. This had been happening for years, and I had not seen it. I had not known. I had been living in the same house, breathing the same air, eating meals at the same table, and I had not known. When she finished, she gathered the papers back into a neat stack and put them in the bag. She left the DNA test on the table in front of me. She said, "I am not telling you this to hurt you, Mom. I am telling you because you need to know. Because I need you to know. Because I cannot do this alone anymore. And because that baby growing inside me deserves a grandmother who knows the truth. I love you, but I need you to choose. Choose to believe me. Choose to protect me. Choose to do what you should have done 6 years ago if I had been brave enough to tell you." I looked at her, my daughter, my Caroline, and I saw all the years she had carried this, all the nights she had stayed quiet, all the times she had sat across from me at this same table and smiled and pretended everything was fine. And I hated myself for not seeing it, for not knowing, for not asking the right questions. Before I could say anything, she stood up again. She said, "I am staying at a hotel tonight. I will call you tomorrow." But I need you to sit with this, Mom. I need you to really sit with it. Do not call him. Do not confront him yet. Just think. Just remember. Because once you start really looking, you are going to see things you missed, things you explained away, things you told yourself did not mean anything, and you are going to realize you have always known. You just did not want to. She walked to the door. She stopped. She turned back and looked at me one more time. She said, "I love you, Mom, but I need you to love me enough to believe me." Then she left. The door closed. The house was silent, and I sat there at my kitchen table holding a piece of paper that told me my entire life was a lie. I do not know how long I sat there. The light changed. The room grew darker. The refrigerator kept humming. I read the name on that paper over and over until the letters stopped making sense. But they always came back into focus, always said the same thing. I thought about Caroline, about the little girl who used to climb into my lap and fall asleep with her head on my shoulder, about the teenager who barely spoke but always watched, about the young woman who moved out at 21 and kept her distance but never said why. I thought about all the times I told myself she was just independent, just private, just Caroline, and I realized she had been protecting me. She had been carrying this alone because she knew what it would do to me. And now she could not carry it anymore. Now she was pregnant. Now there was a baby coming who would be born into this family. And she needed me to be strong enough to face the truth. I need to stop for just a second here. I need to take a breath, because even now, telling this to you, my hands are shaking. But before I go any further, I want to ask you something. Where are you right now? What city are you in? What state? Drop it in the comments because I want to know who is listening. I want to know I am not alone in this. And what time is it where you are? Is it the middle of the night? Are you watching this when you cannot sleep? I understand that more than you know. If this story is hitting home for you, if you are feeling what I am feeling, hit that like button. And subscribe if you have not already, because there is a new story here every single day. Stories like this. Stories about truth and family and the things we do not want to see. Maybe tomorrow's will be the one someone you love needs to hear. Okay, let me keep going. I finally stood up from the table. My legs felt weak, like they might not hold me. I walked through my house, and everything looked the same, but felt different. The photographs on the wall, the furniture in the living room, the coffee mugs in the kitchen. All of it belonged to a life I thought I knew. A life I thought was stable and predictable and safe. But now, I was seeing it through different eyes. Now, I was looking for cracks, for signs, for things I had missed. I picked up a framed photograph from the mantel. It was from Caroline's high school graduation. She was standing between me and Harold, my husband of 53 years. We were all smiling. Harold had his arm around her shoulders. She was leaning slightly away from him, just slightly. So small I had never noticed it before, but now I saw it. Now I saw the tension in her smile, the way her eyes were not quite meeting the camera, the way her body was creating distance even while standing right next to him. I put the photograph down. I felt sick. I walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. 76 years old. Lines around my eyes and mouth. Gray hair pulled back in a bun. The same face I had seen every day for decades. But now, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. How had I not known? How had I not seen? I thought about all the years, all the dinners, all the holidays, all the ordinary moments that now felt contaminated. I thought about Caroline at 16, at 18, at 20, always quiet, always watching, always just a little bit distant. I had told myself it was her personality, that she was just more reserved than other girls her age, that she would open up when she was ready. But she had not been reserved. She had been protecting herself. She had been surviving. I went back to the kitchen. The DNA test was still on the table. I read it again. The name, the percentage, the date it was processed, March 10th, just 2 weeks ago. Caroline had been carrying the knowledge of her pregnancy and had immediately gotten this test done. She had not waited, had not hesitated. She had needed to know for certain before she came to me, before she destroyed everything. I picked up my phone. I almost called Harold. Almost. But then I remembered what Caroline had said. Do not call him. Do not confront him yet. Just think. Just remember. So I put the phone down. I made myself a cup of tea, even though my hands were shaking so badly I spilled water on the counter. I sat back down at the table, and I started to remember. Caroline was born in the summer, July 16th. She was my second child. My first was a son, Michael, who was 4 years older. Michael and Caroline had never been particularly close. He moved to Seattle for work when Caroline was 14, and they only saw each other at holidays. Michael was loud and confident and always knew what he wanted. Caroline was the opposite. She was quiet and careful and seemed to carry the weight of the world on her small shoulders, even when she was young. I used to worry about her, used to ask if she was okay, if something was bothering her, if she needed to talk. She always said she was fine, always smiled and changed the subject. I thought I was respecting her boundaries, giving her space. Now I realize I was making it easy for her to hide. Harold and I met when we were both 22. He was studying accounting. I was working as a secretary at the college. He was steady, reliable, not particularly romantic, but dependable in a way that felt safe. We got married within a year, had Michael 2 years later, had Caroline 6 years after that. Harold worked long hours, but he was a good provider. He never raised his voice, never caused trouble. He was the kind of man people described as solid, as a good father, as someone you could count on. And I believed that. I believed it completely. He was involved with the kids when they were young, coached Michael's little league team, helped Caroline with her homework, took her to ballet lessons and school events. Everyone said how lucky I was to have a husband who was so engaged, so present. I said it too. I believed it too. But now I was remembering things differently. I was remembering the way Caroline stopped wanting Harold to help with her homework when she was around 12, the way she started locking her bedroom door, the way she flinched slightly when he put his hand on her shoulder. I had noticed those things. I had. But I had explained them away. She is growing up. She wants privacy. She is becoming a teenager. That is normal. Except maybe it was not normal. Maybe it was a warning. Maybe my daughter was trying to tell me something, and I was too busy protecting my version of reality to hear her. I thought about when Caroline was in high school. She joined every after-school activity she could find. Drama club, debate team, volunteer work, anything to stay away from home. I had been proud of her, thought she was ambitious, driven. Now I wondered if she was just trying to be anywhere but here. I thought about when she was 17. She had a boyfriend, a nice boy named Daniel. They dated for about 6 months, and then she broke up with him. She would not tell me why, just said it was not working out. A few months later, she stopped going to youth group at church, stopped attending family dinners, started spending more and more time in her room. I asked her what was wrong. She said nothing. She said she was tired. She said she had a lot of homework. And I believed her, because it was easier than pushing, easier than confronting the possibility that something in my house and my family was very wrong. When Caroline turned 18, she left for college 3 hours away. She came home for holidays but never stayed long. Always had an excuse. Always had somewhere else to be. I told myself she was independent, that she was building her own life, that this was healthy. But now I wondered if she was running. If she was putting as much distance between herself and this house as she possibly could. She graduated college and moved to Chicago, got a job as a graphic designer, lived in a small apartment in Lincoln Park. She called me once a week, always brief, always surface level. How is work? How is the weather? How is Dad? Never anything deeper, never anything real. I visited her a few times. She was always polite, always made time for me, but I could feel the wall between us, the distance. I thought it was just who she was, just her personality. Now I knew it was protection. She was keeping me at arm's length because letting me in meant risking that I would see the truth. And she did not trust that I would choose her over him, over Harold, over the life we had built. And maybe she was right not to trust me, because when I think about all the signs I missed, all the moments I explained away, I realize I was choosing my comfort over her truth long before she ever came to me with that DNA test. I sat in my kitchen until the sun went down, until the room was dark except for the light over the stove. I thought about Harold, about the man I had been married to for 53 years, the man I woke up next to every morning, the man I cooked for and cleaned for and built a life with. I thought about his habits, his routines, the way he liked his coffee black with 1 sugar, the way he read the newspaper at breakfast, the way he always kissed me on the forehead before bed. All the small, ordinary things that made up a marriage, a life. And I tried to reconcile that man with the name on the DNA test, with what Caroline was telling me, with what the evidence was showing me. And I could not. My mind could not hold both realities at once. The husband I loved, the monster my daughter was describing. They could not be the same person, except they were. The paper said so. The documents said so. My daughter's shaking hands and hollow eyes said so. I heard the front door open. Harold was home. He worked late most Tuesdays, had a standing meeting with a client that ran until 6:30. I heard him set his briefcase down in the hallway, heard him hang his coat in the closet, heard his footsteps coming toward the kitchen. I looked at the DNA test still sitting on the table. I grabbed it, folded it, shoved it into my pocket just as he walked into the room. He smiled at me. That same smile I had seen 10,000 times. "Honey, I am home. Did you have a good day?" I stared at him, at his familiar face, his graying hair, his reading glasses hanging from a chain around his neck, and I felt something I had never felt before when looking at my husband. I felt afraid. I forced myself to smile back. I said, "Yes, fine. How was your meeting?" He started talking about his client, about numbers and projections and tax strategies. I was not listening. I was watching him, watching the way he moved, the way he spoke, looking for something, some sign, some proof that he was the man Caroline said he was. But he looked exactly the same, sounded exactly the same. He poured himself a glass of water. He asked what was for dinner. I said I had not started yet. He said that was fine. He would order pizza. He pulled out his phone. He asked if I wanted my usual. I nodded. He placed the order, sat down at the table, right where Caroline had sat just hours before. He asked if anything was wrong. I said no. Just tired. He reached across the table and patted my hand. "You should rest more, Maggie. You do too much." His hand on mine felt like a stranger's touch. I pulled away, said I needed to use the bathroom. I stood up. I walked out of the kitchen. I went to the bathroom and locked the door and sat on the edge of the tub and tried not to scream. When I came out, Harold was watching television in the living room. The pizza had arrived. He had set the table, poured me a glass of water, everything normal, everything ordinary. We ate in silence. He asked again if I was feeling okay. I said yes, just a headache. He said I should take something and go to bed early. I said I would. After dinner, I cleaned up the kitchen. He went to his office to finish some work. I stood at the sink washing dishes and staring out the window into the dark backyard, and I thought about my daughter, about her sitting in a hotel room right now, alone, pregnant, waiting for me to call, waiting for me to choose. And I realized I had already made my choice years ago. I had chosen comfort over truth, chosen my marriage over my daughter's pain, chosen to believe the version of my family that felt safe. And now I had to decide if I was going to keep making that choice or if I was finally going to do what I should have done the first time my daughter tried to tell me something was wrong. I went upstairs. Harold was still in his office. I went into our bedroom. I closed the door. I pulled the DNA test out of my pocket. I unfolded it. I read the name again. Harold James Dawson, 99.97% probability of paternity. I folded it back up. I put it in the drawer of my nightstand under a stack of old birthday cards. I sat on the edge of the bed, and I made a promise to myself, to Caroline, to the grandchild growing inside her. I promised that I would not look away anymore. I would not explain this away. I would not protect the life I thought I had at the expense of the truth. I did not know what I was going to do yet. I did not know how I was going to confront Harold, how I was going to face this. But I knew I was going to face it, because my daughter needed me. And this time, I was not going to fail her. I heard Harold coming up the stairs. I quickly got into bed, pulled the covers up, closed my eyes, pretended to be asleep. He came into the room, changed into his pajamas, brushed his teeth, got into bed beside me. He said, "Good night, Maggie. I love you." I did not respond. I kept my eyes closed, kept my breathing even, and I felt him settle in next to me. The man I had shared a bed with for over 50 years, the man whose name was on a paternity test for my daughter's unborn child. I lay there in the dark, listening to him breathe, and I wondered how many nights Caroline had lain awake in this house, listening, afraid, waiting for morning, counting down the days until she could leave. And I felt my heart break for her, for the child she had been, for the woman she had become, for everything she had survived while I slept peacefully in my ignorance. Harold's breathing slowed, deepened. He was asleep. I opened my eyes, stared at the ceiling, and I started planning, because this was not over. This was just beginning, and I needed to be ready, ready to hear the full truth, ready to gather evidence, ready to protect my daughter, ready to burn down the life I thought I knew if that was what it took to give Caroline and her baby the safety they deserved. I thought about the bag of documents she had brought, the medical records, the emails, the photographs. I needed to see all of it, needed to understand the full scope of what had happened, needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made my next move. Tomorrow, I would call Caroline. Tomorrow, I would tell her I believed her. Tomorrow, I would start asking the questions I should have asked years ago. But tonight, I lay in the dark next to a man I no longer recognized, and I mourned. I mourned the marriage I thought I had, the family I thought we were, the life I thought we had built together. I mourned my own blindness, my own complicity, all the times I had chosen not to see, all the times I had accepted easy answers, all the times I had failed my daughter without even knowing it. And I made another promise, a harder one. I promised that no matter what it cost me, no matter what I lost, no matter how much it hurt, I would choose Caroline this time. I would choose truth over comfort. I would choose my daughter over my marriage. I would choose to be the mother she had always needed me to be, even if it destroyed everything else. The night stretched on forever. I did not sleep. I lay there beside Harold, listening to him breathe and feeling like I was sleeping next to a stranger. Every small sound made me tense. The shift of the mattress when he moved, the soft whistle of his exhale. Things that had been the background noise of my life for 53 years now felt sinister, wrong, like I was hearing them for the first time. Somewhere around 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep entirely. I got out of bed as quietly as I could. Harold did not stir. I went downstairs in the dark, made myself a cup of tea I did not drink, sat at the kitchen table in the same chair where I had sat when Caroline told me, where I had held that DNA test in my shaking hands. The house was so quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock, the settling sounds of an old house in the night. And I thought about all the nights Caroline must have sat in this same silence, waiting, listening, afraid. I grew up in a different time, a different world. I was born in 1949 in a little town called Geneva, just outside of Chicago. My father worked at a steel mill. My mother stayed home with me and my 3 brothers. We did not have much. We lived in a small house with thin walls where you could hear everything. My father was a hard man, not cruel exactly, but not kind either. He believed children should be seen and not heard. He believed in discipline, in rules, in order. My mother was softer, but she deferred to him in everything. That was just how it was. Women did not question their husbands back then, did not challenge them, did not speak up. You made your marriage work no matter what. You kept your problems private. You protected the family reputation. I learned those lessons early, learned them well, and I carried them into my own marriage without ever questioning if they were right. When I met Harold, I thought I had found safety, stability. He was nothing like my father. He was gentle, soft-spoken. He did not drink, did not yell, did not raise a hand to anyone. He was studying to be an accountant, which meant he would have a steady job, a reliable income, security. That was what mattered to me. That was what I thought love was. Someone who showed up, someone who provided, someone who did not make trouble. We got married young. I was 23. He was 24. We had a small wedding at the Lutheran church my family attended. My mother made my dress. We had a reception in the church basement with sandwiches and cake. It was modest, simple, everything I thought I wanted. I moved into Harold's apartment, started keeping house, started building the life I had been raised to build. Michael was born 2 years later. He was an easy baby, happy, loud, always wanting attention. Harold adored him, would come home from work and scoop him up and play with him for hours. I remember thinking how lucky I was, what a good father he was, how different from my own father who had barely acknowledged us unless we were misbehaving. Harold was involved, present. Everyone said so. When Michael started school, Harold went to every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every sports event. He was the kind of father other mothers envied. I was proud of him, proud of our family, proud of the life we were building. Everything seemed perfect, or at least it seemed good enough. And I thought good enough was all anyone could ask for. Caroline was not planned. We had not intended to have another child. Michael was 4, and I thought we were done. But I got pregnant. I was 29. Harold was 30. At first I was worried. We were settled into our routine. Our life with just Michael felt complete. But Harold was thrilled. He said he had always wanted a daughter, said it would be nice to have both, a son and a daughter, the perfect family. Caroline was born in July. She was smaller than Michael had been, quieter. She cried less, slept more. She was an easy baby in a different way. She did not demand attention, did not need constant engagement. She was content to be held, content to watch, content to just be. I thought it was a blessing, thought it made my life easier. Now I wonder if even as an infant she was learning to take up as little space as possible. Harold was just as involved with Caroline as he had been with Michael, maybe more. He insisted on doing bedtime, on reading her stories, on being the one to put her to bed every night. I thought it was sweet, thought it showed how much he cared. He would spend hours in her room. Sometimes I would go upstairs to check on them and find him just sitting in the rocking chair, watching her sleep. He said he loved watching her, that she was perfect, that she was his little girl. I did not think anything of it. Why would I? He was her father. He loved her. That was normal. That was good. I had no reason to question it, no reason to see anything wrong in the way he doted on her, no reason to protect her from the one person who was supposed to protect her most. As Caroline got older, she stayed quiet, stayed reserved. She was not like Michael, who made friends easily and talked constantly. She was careful, watchful. She would sit in the corner of a room and observe everything, take it all in. I used to joke that she was an old soul, that she seemed to understand things beyond her years. Other mothers would say their daughters were chatty, dramatic, full of energy. Caroline was none of those things. She was calm, controlled, almost unnaturally well-behaved. I thought it was her personality, thought she was just naturally introverted. Now I think she was learning early how to survive, learning to read the room, learning to make herself small, learning that safety came from not drawing attention. When Caroline was around 10, I started noticing she did not like being alone with Harold. If I said I was running to the store, she would ask to come with me. If Harold offered to take her somewhere, she would find an excuse not to go. I asked her about it once, asked if something was wrong. She said no. She said she just liked being with me. I believed her. I thought it was sweet, thought it was a phase, thought maybe she was just closer to me than to her father. Some girls are. I did not push, did not dig deeper, did not ask the hard questions. Because asking the hard questions would have meant facing answers I was not ready to hear. And so I let it go. I let her keep her distance from Harold and told myself it did not mean anything. By the time Caroline was 12, she had started locking her bedroom door. I noticed because one day I went to wake her up for school and the door was locked. I knocked. She opened it looking startled. I asked why she had locked it. She said she just liked her privacy. I told her that was fine but asked her not to lock it at night in case there was an emergency. She agreed. But I noticed the lock stayed on. And sometimes when I passed her room at night, I would hear the soft click of it being turned. I should have asked why. Should have sat her down and demanded to know what she was afraid of. But I did not. I told myself she was becoming a teenager. That teenagers need privacy. That this was normal. That I was respecting her boundaries by not prying. But respecting boundaries and ignoring warning signs are two very different things. And I chose the easier interpretation, the one that let me keep believing everything was fine. I need to pause here for a moment. I need to catch my breath because this part is hard to say out loud. But I want to ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? What city? What state? Tell me in the comments. And what time is it there? Is it late? Are you alone? I feel less alone knowing you are there. If this story is making you feel something, hit that like button. And if you have not already subscribed, please do. There is a new story here every day. Stories about families, about secrets, about the things we do not want to see. Maybe tomorrow's story will be the one that helps you or someone you know. Now let me keep going. This gets harder before it gets better. Caroline started high school and everything shifted. She threw herself into activities, drama club, yearbook, volunteer work at the animal shelter. She was never home. I thought she was thriving, thought she was finally coming out of her shell. She made a few friends, nice girls. She started going to their houses after school, spending weekends there. I was happy for her, thought it was healthy. Harold seemed less pleased. He would make comments, say things like, "She is never here anymore." Say he missed spending time with her, say she was growing up too fast. I agreed with him, thought he was just being a sentimental father, thought he missed his little girl. Now I hear those comments differently. Now I hear possession, control, a man upset that his victim was slipping out of his reach. When Caroline was 16, she started dating a boy named Daniel. He was polite, respectful. He came to the house to pick her up, shook Harold's hand, called me ma'am. I liked him, thought he was a good kid, thought Caroline seemed happy. But Harold did not like him. He said Daniel was not good enough for her, said she was too young to be dating seriously, said we needed to set stricter rules. I thought he was being an overprotective father, thought it was normal for dads to be wary of boys dating their daughters. I did not see it for what it was. A man threatened by another man's presence in his victim's life. A man afraid of losing control. A man who could not stand the idea of Caroline having a relationship with someone who might actually care about her. Someone who might notice that something was wrong. Caroline and Daniel dated for about 6 months. Then suddenly, it was over. Caroline came home one day and said they had broken up. She would not say why, just said it did not work out. She seemed upset, but also relieved. I asked if she wanted to talk about it. She said no. I let it go. A few weeks later, I ran into Daniel's mother at the grocery store. She said she was sorry it did not work out, said Daniel had really cared about Caroline. I asked if she knew what happened. She hesitated. Then she said Daniel told her Caroline had said she could not date anyone right now, that she had too much going on, that it was not about him. I nodded, said that made sense, but it did not make sense. Caroline had plenty of time, plenty of space in her life for a relationship, so why did she end it? Now I think I know. Now I think Harold made her end it. Now I think he found a way to make her choose between keeping the peace at home and having a normal teenage relationship. And she chose survival. She chose not to rock the boat. She chose to protect herself the only way she knew how. After that, Caroline withdrew even more. She stopped going to youth group at church, stopped attending family dinners. She would come home from school and go straight to her room, lock the door. I would call her down for dinner, and she would say she was not hungry. I started to worry, started to think maybe she was depressed. I suggested she talk to someone, a counselor, a therapist. She said she was fine, said she just needed space. Harold said I was overreacting, said teenagers are moody, said she would grow out of it. And I believed him, because it was easier to believe him than to admit something was seriously wrong. Easier to believe this was a phase than to face the possibility that my daughter was suffering and I did not know how to help her. When Caroline graduated high school, she left. She had been accepted to a college 3 hours away. Not far enough that it seemed strange, but far enough that she did not have to come home often. She packed up her things. We helped her move into her dorm. She hugged me goodbye. She shook Harold's hand. Did not hug him. I noticed that, noticed the distance. But I told myself she was just growing up, just asserting her independence, just becoming her own person. She called me once a week that first semester, always brief, always surface level. I asked how classes were, how her roommate was, if she had made friends. She answered in short sentences, never volunteered information, never asked about home, never asked about Harold. When I mentioned him, she would change the subject. I thought she was just focused on her new life. Now I think she was trying to forget, trying to put as much distance between herself and him as possible, trying to build a life where he did not exist. Caroline came home for Thanksgiving that first year. She was different, thinner, quieter. She barely spoke at dinner, barely ate. She spent most of the weekend in her old room. When it was time to go back, she hugged me tight, tighter than usual, like she did not want to let go. But then she did, and she left. And I stood in the driveway watching her car disappear and feeling like I had lost something I could not name. Christmas was the same. She came home, stayed a few days, kept to herself, left as soon as she could. I asked her if everything was okay. She said yes. She said school was hard. She said she was stressed. I believed her. I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was too frightening. The alternative was that my daughter was running from something, and I did not want to face what that something might be. By her sophomore year, Caroline stopped coming home, except for major holidays. And even then, she would only stay a day or two. She got a part-time job, said she needed to work over breaks. I missed her, told her so. She said she missed me too. But she did not come home. She did not visit. She called less often. When I called her, she was always busy, always had somewhere to be, always had an excuse. I told Harold I was worried about her. He said she was just busy with school, just growing up, just becoming independent. He said we needed to give her space, let her live her life. And I did. I gave her space. I let her live her life. And I told myself this was normal. This was what happened when children became adults. They moved on. They built their own lives. They did not need you anymore. It hurt, but it was supposed to hurt. That was part of letting go. Caroline graduated college and moved to Chicago. She got a job as a graphic designer at a small firm. She rented an apartment in Lincoln Park. She seemed to be doing well. She called me once a week, like clockwork. Sunday afternoons. We would talk for maybe 15 minutes. She would tell me about work, about the city, about nothing important. I would tell her about what was happening here, about Harold's work, about the neighbors, about my garden. Surface-level conversation. Safe conversation. Conversation that kept us connected without requiring either of us to be vulnerable. I visited her a few times, took the train into the city. She would meet me at the station. We would have lunch, walk around. She would show me her apartment, her neighborhood. We would talk about easy things, and then I would go home, and the distance between us would settle back in like fog. Harold rarely came with me to visit Caroline. He said he was too busy, said work was demanding, said he would come next time, but next time never came. Caroline never asked about him, never suggested we all get together. When I mentioned him on the phone, she would go quiet, change the subject. I told myself they just were not close, that some fathers and daughters drift apart as the daughter gets older, that it was not personal. But it was personal. It was deeply personal. Caroline was avoiding him, keeping him out of her life as much as possible while still maintaining a relationship with me. And I let her. I let her keep that boundary without ever asking why she needed it, without ever questioning what she was protecting herself from. Then 6 years ago, something happened. Caroline was 22. She called me on a Tuesday night, not her usual Sunday call. I answered, and she was crying, really crying, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. I asked what was wrong. She said she could not do this anymore. I asked what. She said she could not keep pretending. I asked what she meant. There was a long silence. Then she said, "Never mind." She said she was just having a bad day. She said she was sorry for worrying me. She said she had to go. And she hung up. I tried to call her back. She did not answer. I called again. Again. Finally, she texted me. She said she was fine. She said she just needed to be alone. She said she would call me Sunday like always. I told Harold about it. He said she probably had a fight with a boyfriend or something. Said women are emotional. Said she would be fine. And I accepted that. I accepted his dismissal of my daughter's pain. I accepted that she was fine, even though every instinct in my body told me she was not. That Sunday, Caroline called like always. She sounded calm, controlled. She said she was sorry for scaring me. She said she had just been overwhelmed with work. She said everything was fine. I wanted to push, wanted to ask more questions, but I did not. I let her tell me everything was fine. I let her change the subject. I let the moment pass. And I told myself I was respecting her privacy, giving her space. But I was not. I was taking the easy way out. I was avoiding a difficult conversation because I was afraid of what I might learn. Afraid that if I pushed, I might hear something I could not unhear. Something that would force me to act. Something that would disrupt the careful balance of my life. So I stayed quiet. And Caroline stayed quiet. And the truth stayed buried for 6 more years. Now as I sat in my dark kitchen at 3 a.m, I thought about that phone call. About her sobbing. About her saying she could not keep pretending. And I realized she had been trying to tell me. She had been reaching out, and I had let her pull back. I had accepted her reassurance because it was easier than facing her pain. I had failed her then, just like I had failed her for years before that, and I hated myself for it. Hated the woman I had been. The woman who chose comfort over her daughter's truth. The woman who protected her own peace at the expense of her child's safety. The sky started to lighten. Morning was coming. I heard Harold stirring upstairs, heard the shower turn on, heard him moving around getting ready for work. I stayed downstairs, made coffee, started breakfast even though I had no appetite. Harold came down dressed for the office. He kissed my forehead like he always did, said good morning, poured himself coffee, sat at the table with the newspaper, everything normal, everything routine. I set a plate of eggs and toast in front of him. He thanked me, started eating, started reading. I watched him. This man I had lived with for 53 years. This man who had shared my bed and my life and my table. And I tried to see the monster, tried to see what Caroline saw. But all I saw was Harold, familiar, ordinary, the same man he had always been. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. Because if he could hide this for so long, if he could be this person and that person at the same time, then I had never really known him at all. Harold left for work. The house fell silent again. I cleaned up the kitchen, washed the dishes, wiped down the counters, went through all the motions of my normal morning routine, but nothing felt normal, nothing felt right. I kept thinking about Caroline, about her sitting in that hotel room, waiting. I pulled out my phone. I called her. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was cautious, guarded. "Mom." I took a breath. I said, "Caroline, I believe you." There was silence. Then I heard her exhale, a shaky breath like she had been holding it since she left my house yesterday. She said, "Thank you." Her voice broke. She started crying. Not the controlled crying of someone trying to hold it together. Real crying. Years of crying. I cried too. I said, "I am so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have known. I should have protected you." She said, "It is okay, Mom." But it was not okay. It would never be okay. But she was giving me grace I did not deserve, and I was going to spend the rest of my life trying to earn it. I asked Caroline where she was staying. She gave me the name of a hotel near the airport. I told her to come home, not to the house on Brookfield Lane. I meant come to me, come where I could keep her safe. She hesitated. She said she did not think she could be in that house right now. I understood. I told her to stay there. I would come to her. She said, "Okay." I hung up. I grabbed my purse and my keys. I did not leave a note for Harold, did not tell him where I was going. I just got in my car and drove. The morning traffic was heavy, but I barely noticed. My mind was racing, planning, trying to figure out what came next. How do you confront something like this? How do you prove something that happened in shadows and silence? How do you fight someone who has spent decades building a respectable life specifically so no one would ever suspect the truth? The hotel was a standard chain off the highway. I parked and went inside, called Caroline from the lobby. She came down a few minutes later. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was wearing sweatpants and an oversized sweater. When she saw me, she started crying again. I hugged her, held her tight, felt how thin she was, how fragile. My daughter, who had carried this weight alone for so long. We went up to her room. It was small. 2 double beds, a desk, a television. The brown paper bag from yesterday was sitting on the desk. Caroline sat on the edge of one bed. I sat beside her. I took her hand. I said, "I need you to tell me everything. I need to know what happened, when it started, how long it went on, all of it." She looked at me. Her eyes were red, swollen. She said, "Are you sure, Mom? Once I tell you, you cannot unhear it." I said, "I am sure. I need to know. She deserves to know." Caroline took a deep breath. She stood up, went to the desk, opened the brown paper bag. She pulled out the stack of documents she had shown me yesterday. She brought them back to the bed. She said, "I am going to walk you through this chronologically. I am going to show you proof for everything I tell you. Because I need you to understand this is not a misunderstanding. This is not me misremembering things. This is real. This happened." I nodded. She opened the first document. It was a journal entry, handwritten, dated from when she was 14 years old. She said I started keeping a journal when I was in middle school. My therapist suggested it. I did not tell the therapist why I needed it, but I needed somewhere to put what was happening, somewhere outside of my own head. She handed me the journal entry. I read it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. The entry was written in Caroline's careful handwriting. It described a night when Harold came into her room after I had gone to bed. It described him sitting on the edge of her bed. It described things he said, things he did. It was clinical, detached, like she was describing something happening to someone else. But the fear was there underneath every word, the confusion, the shame. I felt like I was going to be sick. I looked up at Caroline. I said, "How old were you when it started?" She looked down at her hands. She said, "I do not remember exactly when it started. I was young, maybe 7 or 8. I do not have clear memories from back then, just feelings. Just this sense that something was wrong. But I remember clearly by the time I was 10 it was happening regularly. I could not breathe. I said regularly. She nodded. She said 2 or 3 times a week, whenever you were asleep, whenever he could get me alone. Before I go any further, I have to stop. I have to take a breath because what I am about to tell you gets darker, gets harder, but I need you to stay with me. I need you to hear this, because this is not just my story. This is the story of so many families, so many grandmothers who did not see, so many children who could not speak. So tell me where you are right now. What city? What time is it there? Leave me a comment because knowing you are listening gives me strength to keep going. Hit that like button if you believe survivors, if you believe children, if you believe that speaking the truth matters even when it is painful. Subscribe if you want to hear how this ends, because it does end. There is resolution coming. There is justice coming. But we have to walk through the darkness first. Now let me continue. Caroline pulled out more journal entries, more documents. She had therapy records from when she was 16. She had finally told a school counselor that she was having trouble at home. The counselor referred her to a therapist, but Caroline had been too afraid to tell the therapist the real problem. She said she talked about feeling anxious, feeling depressed, feeling like she did not fit in. The therapist diagnosed her with generalized anxiety disorder, prescribed medication, taught her coping strategies, but never dug deeper, never asked the right questions, never pushed past Caroline's careful walls. Caroline said she wanted to tell. Part of her wanted someone to figure it out, to rescue her. But she was terrified, terrified of not being believed, terrified of what would happen if she was believed, terrified that speaking up would destroy the family, would destroy me. So she stayed quiet, took her medication, learned to cope, learned to survive. She showed me emails, printed out and saved, emails from when she was in college, emails to herself. She said I would write emails to myself late at night when I could not sleep, when the memories were too loud. I would write down what happened, what I remembered. I would send them to an email account I created just for this. I called it my evidence folder, because even then, part of me knew that someday I might need to prove this. Someday I might need to show someone that I was not making this up, that this really happened. I read the emails. They were detailed, specific. They included dates, times, descriptions of what Harold had done, where it happened, what he said, how he threatened her, how he told her no one would believe her, how he told her it was their special secret, how he told her she was his favorite, how he made her feel like it was her fault, like she had done something to make this happen. Caroline pulled out photographs. She said these are from when I was 17. I had started cutting myself, just small cuts on my thighs where no one would see. It was the only way I could feel like I had control over my own body, the only pain I could choose. I took pictures because I do not know. Maybe I thought someday I would need proof that I was not okay, that something was wrong. The photographs showed thin white scars, some older, some fresher. I stared at them, at the evidence of my daughter's suffering carved into her own skin. And I wanted to scream. I wanted to go back in time and shake myself, shake the woman who did not see, who did not ask, who accepted easy answers and surface explanations. She showed me more, medical records from when she was 20. She had gone to a doctor complaining of chronic pain, headaches, stomach problems, insomnia. The doctor ran tests, found nothing physically wrong, suggested it might be stress, might be psychosomatic, prescribed more medication, referred her to another therapist. Caroline said the therapist was better, asked better questions, and I almost told her. I came so close. But then I thought about you, Mom. I thought about how it would destroy you, how you loved him, how you had built your whole life around him, and I could not do it. I could not be the one to blow up your world. So I told the therapist I had been assaulted in college by someone I dated. It was not true, but it was close enough. It explained the symptoms. It gave her something to work with. And I started trauma therapy for an assault that never happened while the real trauma stayed locked inside. Caroline pulled out the last document. The DNA test. She said, "This is from 2 weeks ago. When I found out I was pregnant, I knew I had to find out for sure. I knew I had to have proof. Because I knew you would need proof. I knew I could not just tell you and expect you to believe me. Not after all these years of staying quiet. Not without evidence." So I got the test done. I used a sample from his toothbrush. I still had my key to the house from years ago. I came by one day when I knew you both would be at church. I took the toothbrush. I sent it to the lab along with my own sample. And when the results came back, I sat in my apartment and stared at them for 3 hours. Because seeing it in writing, seeing that percentage, 99.97%, it made it real in a way it had never been real before. It made it impossible to deny, impossible to explain away. It was proof, finally, after all these years, proof that I was not crazy, proof that this happened, proof that he is exactly the monster I always knew he was. I held the DNA test in my hands. I said, "Caroline, why did you wait so long? Why did you not tell me sooner?" She looked at me. She said, "Because I was afraid, Mom, afraid you would not believe me, afraid you would choose him over me, afraid it would kill you, and honestly, afraid of what he would do if I told. He made it very clear when I was younger that if I ever told anyone, he would make sure no one believed me. He said he would say I was troubled, that I made things up for attention, that I had mental health issues, and he was right. Who would people believe? The respected accountant with no criminal record, the pillar of the community, the devoted husband and father, or his troubled daughter with diagnosed anxiety and depression, his daughter who cut herself, who had been in therapy for years, who could barely hold down a job in her early 20s. He set it up perfectly, Mom. He made sure that if I ever spoke up, I would look like the unreliable one." I started to cry, deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I did not know existed. Caroline put her arms around me. She said, "It is okay, Mom. It is okay." But it was not okay. Nothing about this was okay. My daughter had been abused for years, right under my roof, while I slept down the hall, while I cooked dinner and did laundry and lived my normal life, while I kissed my husband goodnight and told myself I had a good marriage, a good family, a good life, and all of it had been built on my daughter's silence, on her suffering, on her sacrifice to protect me from a truth I should have seen on my own. I said, "I am so sorry, Caroline. I am so, so sorry." She said, "I know, Mom. I know you are." We sat there for a long time, just holding each other. Finally, I pulled back. I wiped my eyes. I said, "What do we do now? What is the next step?" Caroline said, "I have been researching, trying to figure out the best way to handle this. The problem is, most of the abuse happened when I was a minor, years ago. The statute of limitations has run out for criminal prosecution in Illinois for most of it. There might be some civil options, but honestly, Mom, I do not know if I want to go through a trial. I do not know if I can sit in a courtroom and relive all of this in front of strangers, in front of a jury, in front of him. What I want is for him to be out of our lives. I want him away from me, away from you, away from this baby. I want him to know that I told, that you believe me, that his power over me is gone. And I want to make sure he can never do this to anyone else." I said, "What about the police? Should we file a report? She said we can. I want to. I think we should. But I need you to understand that it probably will not lead to charges. It probably will not lead to jail time. The evidence I have is compelling, but most of it is my own documentation. Journal entries, emails to myself, photographs of self-harm. The DNA test proves he is the father of my baby, but it does not prove lack of consent. It does not prove I was a child when the abuse started. A good lawyer could argue that we had a consensual relationship when I was an adult. It is disgusting. It is wrong. But legally, it is complicated. I felt sick again. I said, so he just gets away with it. She said, not completely. There are other consequences, social consequences, professional consequences. I plan to tell everyone. I plan to make sure every single person in his life knows what he did. I do not care about protecting his reputation anymore. I do not care about protecting the family image. I care about the truth, and I care about making sure he loses everything he values: his reputation, his standing in the community, his marriage, his access to his future grandchild, all of it. I looked at my daughter, at her strength, at her determination, and I felt something shift inside me. Something that had been frozen for decades started to thaw. I said, I am with you. Whatever you need, whatever you want to do, I am with you. I will stand beside you. I will tell everyone. I will leave him. I will testify if it comes to that. I will do whatever it takes. She squeezed my hand. She said, thank you, Mom. That means everything. I said, what do we do first? She said, first, we need to get you out of that house. You are not safe there. Not now that he is going to figure out you know. He is going to realize something is wrong. He is going to try to control the narrative. We need to move fast. I nodded. I said, I will pack a bag today. I will leave. She said, do not tell him where you are going. Do not engage with him. Just leave. Leave a note if you have to, but get out. We spent the rest of the morning planning. Caroline had thought this through, had been thinking it through for weeks, since she found out she was pregnant, since she decided she could not bring a child into a family built on lies. She had a lawyer, a friend from college who specialized in family law. She had already consulted with her, already knew what the legal options were. She had a therapist who was willing to provide records and testimony about the lasting impact of childhood trauma. She had copies of everything, multiple copies stored in different locations. She was not taking any chances. She was not going to let Harold destroy the evidence or manipulate the story. She had learned from him, learned to be strategic, learned to plan, learned to protect herself, and now she was using those skills to fight back. We talked about the pregnancy. She was 12 weeks along, due in late September. She had not told the father. There was no father in the traditional sense. She said there was a guy she had been seeing casually. Nothing serious. When she found out she was pregnant, she ended it, told him she was not ready for a relationship. He did not know about the baby. She did not plan to tell him. This baby was hers and mine and no one else's. I asked if she was scared. She said terrified, but also determined. She said this baby is going to grow up knowing the truth, knowing that secrets destroy families, knowing that speaking up is hard, but staying silent is harder. This baby is going to grow up safe, protected, believed, everything I was not. By early afternoon, I knew I had to go. Had to go back to the house, had to face Harold, had to pack my things and leave. Caroline offered to come with me. I said no. I needed to do this alone. She made me promise to call her as soon as I was out. Made me promise not to engage with Harold if he tried to stop me. Made me promise to be safe. I promised. I hugged her. I told her I loved her. I told her I was proud of her. I told her she was the bravest person I had ever known. She cried. I cried. Then I left. I got in my car. I drove back to Naperville, back to Brookfield Lane, back to the house I had lived in for 40 years, the house where I had raised my children, the house where my daughter had been violated, the house that had never been the safe haven I thought it was. Harold's car was not in the driveway when I pulled up. He was still at work. Good. I went inside. The house felt different, looked different, like I was seeing it for the first time. I went upstairs to our bedroom. I pulled a suitcase out of the closet, started packing, clothes, toiletries, medications, important documents, photographs of the kids, my jewelry box, my mother's Bible. Things that mattered, things I could not replace. I worked quickly, methodically. I did not let myself think too much. Did not let myself feel too much, just packed, just moved, just prepared to leave the life I had known for 53 years. I was almost finished when I heard the front door open. Harold was home. Early. My heart started racing. I heard his footsteps on the stairs. He appeared in the doorway of our bedroom. He looked at the suitcase on the bed, at the clothes I was folding. He said, "Maggie, what is going on? Where are you going?" I did not look at him. I kept packing. I said, "I am leaving Harold." He stepped into the room. He said, "What do you mean you are leaving? Are you going somewhere? Is everything okay?" I finally looked at him, at his concerned expression, his confused eyes, and I felt rage, pure white-hot rage. I said, "Do not pretend you do not know. Do not stand there and act confused." He said, "I genuinely do not know what you are talking about. Talk to me. What happened? Did I do something wrong?" I reached into my purse, pulled out the DNA test, threw it at him. It hit his chest and fell to the floor. I said that. That is what happened. Read it. He picked it up, unfolded it. Read it. I watched his face, watched for the moment of recognition, the moment of guilt. But what I saw instead was calculation. His expression barely changed. He looked up at me. He said, "Where did you get this?" I said, "Caroline gave it to me. She told me everything, Harold, everything." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Maggie, I think you need to sit down. I think we need to talk about this calmly. Caroline has been struggling for years. You know that. She has mental health issues. She has been in therapy since she was a teenager. I think she has created a narrative in her head that is not based in reality." I stared at him, at the ease with which he lied, at the smoothness of his deflection. And I realized Caroline had been right. He had been preparing for this, had been building his defense for years, making sure Caroline looked unstable, making sure I would doubt her, making sure he had plausible deniability. I said, "Do not do that. Do not try to make her sound crazy. I have seen the evidence, Harold. I have seen the journal entries, the emails, the medical records, the photographs. This is not a delusion. This is not a false memory. This is real. You did this. You abused our daughter, and now she is pregnant with your child." He shook his head. He said, "Maggie, please, think about this logically. Why would I do something like that? I love Caroline. I have always loved her. She is my daughter. This does not make any sense." I said, "It makes perfect sense. It makes horrible, disgusting sense. You are a predator, Harold. You have been lying to me for our entire marriage. You have been hurting our daughter while I slept down the hall, while I made you breakfast and washed your clothes and believed you were a good man. And you let me. You let me live in ignorance while you destroyed her." He stepped toward me. He said, "Maggie, you are upset. I understand. But you need to calm down. We can get Caroline help. We can get her into better therapy. We can figure this out as a family." I held up my hand. I said, "Do not come near me. Do not touch me. I am not calming down. I am leaving. And I am going to make sure everyone knows what you did." His expression changed. The concerned husband mask slipped. What I saw underneath was cold, hard. He said, "If you do that, you will regret it. I have worked too hard to build my reputation to let you destroy it with lies." I said, "They are not lies." He said, "Prove it. Prove that any of this happened. It is her word against mine. And I think we both know who people will believe. The successful accountant or the troubled young woman with a history of mental illness. I said there is a DNA test. He said that proves I am the biological father. It does not prove anything else. For all anyone knows, Caroline and I had a consensual relationship after she became an adult. Inappropriate, maybe. Shocking, definitely. But not illegal. I felt like I had been punched. He had thought of everything, planned for everything. He said, "If you leave me, Maggie, if you side with her on this, you will lose everything. Your home, your financial security, your reputation. Everyone will think you are just a bitter old woman. You will be alone. Is that what you want?" I picked up my suitcase. I said, "Yes, Harold. That is exactly what I want. I would rather be alone than spend one more second in this house with you." I walked past him. He grabbed my arm, tight, hard enough to hurt. He said, "You are making a mistake." I yanked my arm away. I said, "The only mistake I made was trusting you." I went downstairs. He followed me. He was still talking, still trying to manipulate, still trying to convince me that Caroline was lying, that I was overreacting, that we could work this out. I ignored him. I went out to my car, put the suitcase in the trunk, got in the driver's seat, locked the doors. He stood in the driveway, watching me. I started the car. I backed out. I drove away. I looked in the rearview mirror. He was standing there, perfectly still, perfectly calm. And I knew this was not over. I knew he was already planning his next move, already figuring out how to control the damage, how to win. But I did not care. Because for the first time in my life, I had chosen my daughter over my own comfort, and I was not going back. I drove straight back to Caroline's hotel. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. I kept replaying the conversation with Harold, the coldness in his eyes, the calculation, the way he had already prepared his defense, already planned to paint Caroline as mentally unstable, already threatened me with losing everything if I stood with her. Part of me could not believe this was the same man I had woken up next to for 53 years, the man I had cooked for and cleaned for and built a life with. But another part of me was starting to see that maybe I had never really known him at all. Maybe the man I thought I married had always been a carefully constructed mask, and underneath was someone I would never have chosen, someone I would have run from if I had seen him clearly. I called Caroline from the parking lot, told her I was here. She came down and helped me carry my suitcase up to her room. When we got inside, I collapsed onto the bed. I told her everything that had happened, what Harold had said, how he had reacted, the threats he had made. Caroline listened without interrupting. When I finished, she nodded slowly. She said, "That is exactly what I expected. He is going to deny everything. He is going to try to make me look unreliable. He is going to use my mental health history against me. He is going to try to isolate you from me. That is what abusers do, Mom. They lie, they manipulate, they turn everyone against the victim. But we are not going to let him. We are going to be smarter. We are going to be stronger. We are going to fight back." Caroline pulled out her phone. She said, "I already called my lawyer. She is going to file for a restraining order tomorrow morning. Against him. For both of us. We have enough evidence to show a pattern of abuse and a credible threat. The DNA test, the journal entries, the emails, your testimony about what he said today. It should be enough to get a temporary order. Then we have a hearing in a few weeks where we present everything and the judge decides whether to make it permanent." I nodded. I said, "What else?" She said, "We are also going to file a police report. I know it probably will not lead to charges, but we need it on record. We need an official report documenting what happened. Because if he tries to retaliate, if he tries to claim we are lying, we have that paper trail. We have proof that we reported this, that we took it seriously, that we did everything we were supposed to do." I asked, "What about telling people? Telling the family? Telling the community?" Caroline said, "We do that carefully, strategically. We start with the people who matter most. Your son Michael, my brother. He needs to hear this from us before Harold tries to spin it. After that, we tell close friends, people who will support us. We do not blast it all over social media or anything like that. We tell people privately, directly, with evidence if they ask for it. We give them the truth, and then we let them decide what to do with it. Some people will believe us, some people will not. Some people will not want to get involved. We have to be prepared for all of that. I said I understand. She said the hardest part is going to be the people who do not believe us, the people who think we are lying or exaggerating or misunderstanding. Those people are going to hurt. They are going to make you doubt yourself. You have to be ready for that. I need to pause here for a second. I need to ask you something. If you are still with me, still listening to this story, I want to thank you. I want you to know that telling this is one of the hardest things I have ever done. But knowing you are there, knowing you are hearing me, makes it easier. So tell me, where are you watching from? What city, what state, and what time is it there? Leave a comment. Let me know I am not alone. Hit that like button if you believe that survivors deserve to be heard. Subscribe if you want to see how this ends. Because I promise you, there is an ending. There is resolution. There is hope. But we have to get through this part first. Okay, let me keep going. That night, Caroline and I stayed up late talking. Really talking. For the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever. She told me more about her life, about the struggles I had not known about, the relationships that had failed because she could not trust anyone, the job she had lost because her anxiety made it hard to function, the years of therapy trying to heal from something she could not even name. She told me about the shame, about feeling dirty, about feeling like it was somehow her fault, about the voices in her head that sounded like Harold telling her no one would believe her, telling her she was damaged, telling her she deserved what happened. And she told me about the moment she found out she was pregnant, how terrified she had been, how she had almost considered not keeping the baby. But then she realized this baby was her chance to break the cycle, her chance to create a family built on truth instead of lies, her chance to be the kind of mother she wished she had had, the kind who saw, who believed, who protected. I told her about my own regrets, about all the moments I had missed, all the signs I had ignored, all the times I had chosen comfort over courage. I told her about my childhood, about my own father who was not abusive but was cold, distant, about learning early that you do not question the man of the house. You do not make waves, you keep the peace. I told her how I had carried those lessons into my marriage, how I had deferred to Harold in everything, how I had made myself small to make him comfortable, how I had prioritized his needs, his comfort, his reputation over everything else, including, apparently, my own daughter's safety. I told her I was sorry, that I knew sorry was not enough, that I knew I could never give her back the childhood she deserved, but that I was going to spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. Caroline cried. I cried. We held each other. And somewhere in that hotel room in the middle of the night, something shifted between us. The distance that had existed for so long started to close. The wall she had built to protect herself started to come down. And I felt closer to my daughter than I had in 20 years. Maybe ever. Because we were finally being honest with each other. Finally seeing each other clearly. Finally building something real instead of performing something acceptable. The next morning, we went to the police station. We asked to speak to someone about filing a report for historical child abuse. They took us to a small room. A detective came in, a woman in her 40s named Detective Sarah Ortiz. She was kind, patient. She explained the process, explained that because the abuse happened years ago and Caroline was now an adult, the investigation would be complicated. But she took the report seriously. She listened to Caroline tell her story, took notes, asked clarifying questions, never once made Caroline feel like she was not believed. When Caroline showed her the evidence, the journal entries, the emails, the DNA test, Detective Ortiz's expression hardened. She said, "This is substantial. This is compelling. I cannot promise you what will happen with the criminal investigation, but I can promise you I will do everything in my power to pursue this. She explained that she would need to interview Harold, would need to give him a chance to respond to the allegations. Caroline tensed. She said, "Is he going to know I filed this report?" Detective Ortiz said yes. Unfortunately, we cannot investigate without informing him of the allegations. But we can coordinate with your lawyer about the restraining order. We can time the interview so that it happens after the order is in place. That way, he cannot contact you directly. Caroline nodded. She said, "Okay." Detective Ortiz said, "I need to warn you that he is probably going to deny everything. He is probably going to have a lawyer. He is probably going to try to discredit you. This is going to be hard. But you have done the right thing by coming forward. Regardless of what happens next, you have created a record. You have told the truth. And that matters." We left the police station emotionally drained. Caroline's lawyer filed for the restraining order that afternoon. We had to wait for a judge to review it, wait to see if it would be granted. In the meantime, we stayed at the hotel. We did not go back to Brookfield Lane, did not go anywhere Harold might find us. We ordered takeout, watched television, tried to pretend everything was normal even though nothing was normal. My phone kept ringing. Harold calling. I did not answer. He left voicemails. At first they were concerned. "Maggie, where are you? Are you okay? Please call me." Then they got angry. "You cannot just leave without explanation. We need to talk about this. You are being irrational." Then they got manipulative. "I know you are scared. I know this is overwhelming. But we can work through this together. Come home. Let me take care of you." I deleted every message without listening to the end. 2 days later, the restraining order was granted. Temporary order in place. Harold was served at his office. He was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from both Caroline and me. He was not allowed to contact us directly or indirectly, not allowed to come to Caroline's apartment or my new temporary residence. The order stated that a hearing would be held in 3 weeks to determine whether the order should be made permanent. Caroline's lawyer called to tell us. She said he has been notified. He knows. Be prepared for him to react. Maybe not directly since he cannot contact you, but through other people, through family, through friends. He is going to try to control the narrative. You need to get ahead of it. That afternoon, I called my son Michael. He lived in Seattle with his wife and 2 kids. We talked maybe once a month, mostly surface-level conversations about work and the grandkids. I had not told him what was happening, had not wanted to say it over the phone, but now I had no choice. He answered, sounding cheerful. "Hey, Mom, what is up?" I took a breath. I said, "Michael, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting." His tone changed. He said, "Okay, what is wrong?" I told him everything about Caroline, about Harold, about the DNA test, about the restraining order, about the police report. I told him as calmly as I could, as clearly as I could. When I finished, there was silence, long, heavy silence. Then he said, "Mom, are you serious? Is this real?" I said, "Yes, Michael. It is real. Caroline has evidence. I have seen it. I believe her." More silence. Then he said, "I do not understand. Dad would never. He is not that kind of person." I felt my stomach drop. I said, "Michael, I know this is hard to hear. I know you do not want to believe it. But it is true." He said, "How do you know? How do you know Caroline is not making this up? She has always been dramatic. She has always had issues." I felt anger rising. I said, "She is not making this up. She has journal entries from when she was a teenager. She has medical records. She has a DNA test proving Harold is the father of her baby." Michael said, "That does not prove abuse. That just proves they had a relationship. Maybe it started when she was an adult. Maybe it was consensual." I said, "Michael, she is your sister. She is telling you she was abused as a child, and your response is to defend him." He said, "I am not defending anyone. I am just trying to understand. This is a huge accusation. I need more than just her word. I realized then that this was going to be harder than I thought, that even my own son was going to doubt, was going to need convincing, was going to choose his father over his sister. I said, Michael, I am sending you copies of the evidence. You can read it yourself. You can decide for yourself. But I need you to know that I believe Caroline. I am standing with her, and I hope you will too. He said, I need time to process this, Mom. This is a lot. I said, I understand. But while you are processing, your sister is pregnant and terrified and fighting for her life. So do not take too long. I hung up. I sat there staring at the phone. Caroline looked at me. She said he did not believe you. I shook my head. She said, I told you. Some people will not, even people who should. I said, I am sorry. She said, it is okay, Mom. I expected it. Michael has always been Dad's favorite. He is always going to see him as the good guy. Over the next few days, we started telling other people. I called my sister. She believed me immediately, said she had always thought Harold was too good to be true, said she would support us however we needed. I called my closest friend from church. She was shocked, said she needed time to think, never called back. I called a few neighbors. Some believed us, some did not. Some said they did not want to get involved. It was exactly what Caroline had predicted. People divided. Some stood with us. Some stood with Harold. Some refused to take a side. The hardest part was watching people I had known for decades choose to believe him over us. Choose to protect his reputation over Caroline's truth. Choose comfort over justice. Harold started his own campaign. I heard about it through mutual friends. He was telling people I was having a mental breakdown, that I was confused, that Caroline had manipulated me, that he was worried about me. He was playing the concerned husband, the devoted father, the victim of false accusations. And people were believing him because he was good at this. He had been practicing for years. He knew how to present himself, how to gain sympathy, how to make himself look like the reasonable one. Meanwhile, Caroline and I were the hysterical women, the emotional ones, the ones who could not be trusted. But we kept going. We kept telling the truth. We kept presenting the evidence, and slowly, people started to listen. Caroline's lawyer was brilliant. She helped us craft statements, helped us organize the evidence, helped us prepare for the hearing. She said the key is consistency. The key is documentation. The key is showing a pattern. And you have all of that. You have years of documentation. You have medical records. You have therapy notes. You have the DNA test. You have your testimony. You have Detective Ortiz's report. This is not a he said, she said situation. This is a well-documented case of long-term abuse. We are going to win this. 3 weeks later, we went to court for the restraining order hearing. I had not seen Harold since the day I left. When we walked into the courtroom, he was already there, sitting at a table with his lawyer. He looked smaller somehow, older. When he saw us, he did not react, just stared. His lawyer was a man in an expensive suit. He looked confident, prepared. The hearing began. Caroline's lawyer presented our case. She called Caroline to testify. Caroline took the stand. She was calm, composed. She walked through her history, the abuse, the evidence, the pregnancy, the DNA test. Harold's lawyer cross-examined her, tried to poke holes in her story, tried to suggest she was lying for money, for attention, for revenge. But Caroline did not break. She answered every question clearly, honestly. She did not get defensive, did not get emotional, just told the truth. Then Caroline's lawyer called me. I took the stand. I testified about what Caroline had told me, about the evidence I had seen, about Harold's reaction when I confronted him, about his threats. Harold's lawyer tried to discredit me too, suggested I was a scorned wife, suggested I was siding with my daughter out of spite. But I stayed calm. I told the truth. I said I had been married to Harold for 53 years. I had loved him, trusted him, built a life with him, and discovering what he had done had destroyed me. But I was choosing to believe my daughter because the evidence was overwhelming, because her pain was real, because I had failed her once, and I would not fail her again. The judge listened to everything, reviewed the evidence, then she made her ruling. She said, based on the testimony and the documentation presented, I am granting a permanent restraining order. Harold James Dawson is to stay at least 500 feet away from Caroline Dawson and Margaret Dawson at all times. He is not to contact them directly or indirectly. He is not to come to their residences or places of work. Any violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the state's attorney for review of possible criminal charges. This court finds the evidence of abuse to be credible and substantial. Harold sat frozen. His lawyer whispered something to him, but he did not move, did not react, just stared straight ahead. We had won, at least this round. The restraining order was permanent. He could not come near us, could not threaten us, could not control us anymore. We left the courtroom. Caroline was crying. But this time, they were tears of relief, of vindication. She said, "We did it, Mom. We actually did it." I hugged her. I said, "You did it. You were so brave, so strong. I am so proud of you." Her lawyer said, "This is a good outcome. The judge clearly believed you, and referring it to the state's attorney means there is still a possibility of criminal charges. It is not over, but this is a significant victory." We celebrated that night, went to dinner, actually ate for the first time in weeks, talked about the future, about the baby, about what came next, about building a life based on truth. As for me, I am rebuilding, learning who I am outside of being Harold's wife, outside of being the woman who did not see. I am volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other women who are leaving abusive situations, helping them navigate the legal system, helping them find housing and resources, helping them believe they can survive this. I am also speaking up in my church, the church that turned its back on me when I accused one of their most respected members. I went back, walked in one Sunday, sat in a pew. And when the pastor asked if anyone had anything to share, I stood up. I told them what happened. I told them they had chosen wrong. I told them they needed to do better. Some people walked out, but some people stayed. And afterwards a few women came up to me, thanked me, said they had their own stories, said they had never felt safe telling them, said maybe now they could. That is why I speak. That is why I tell this story. Because silence protects abusers, and truth protects children. The trial is coming. We are preparing. Caroline is strong, but I know it will be hard. I know Harold's lawyer will try to tear her apart, will try to make her look like a liar. But we have the evidence. We have the truth. We have each other. And we have people who believe us. That is more than many survivors have. So we will walk into that courtroom. We will tell the truth. And we will let the jury decide. Whatever happens, we will know we did everything we could. We will know we fought. We will know we did not stay silent. And that has to be enough. Emma is sleeping in my arms right now. She is so small, so innocent, so completely unaware of the storm she was born into. But she will know. Someday when she is old enough, we will tell her. We will tell her the truth about where she came from, about what her grandmother did, about what her mother survived, about how we fought for her before she was even born. And we will tell her that she is loved, that she is wanted, that she broke a curse that had been on our family for generations, the curse of silence, the curse of protecting men at the expense of children, the curse of choosing comfort over truth. She broke that curse just by being born, just by existing, just by giving us a reason to fight. I am 76 years old. I do not know how many years I have left, but I know how I want to spend them. I want to spend them with Caroline, with Emma, with truth. I want to spend them helping other survivors, other families, other women who are just starting to see what I did not see for so long. I want to spend them speaking up, standing up, refusing to be silent. I want to spend them being the woman I should have been all along. The woman who believes children, who protects the vulnerable, who chooses truth over comfort every single time. It is not the life I planned, it is not the life I expected, but it is the life I have, and I am going to make it count. So if you are watching this and you see yourself in my story, if you are the grandmother who suspects something is wrong, if you are the mother who does not want to believe, if you are the survivor who has never told, I am talking to you. I am saying, do not wait. Do not stay silent. Do not protect the people who hurt you or the people you love. Speak up, even if your voice shakes, even if you lose everything, even if no one believes you at first. Keep speaking. Keep telling the truth. Keep fighting, because you matter. Your truth matters. Your healing matters. And the children in your life are counting on you to be brave enough to see, to hear, to believe, to act. From my heart to yours. From this old grandmother who learned too late but learned nonetheless. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing. Take care of the children in your life. Watch them. Listen to them. Believe them. Protect them. That is all any of us can do. And it is everything. God bless you. Keep fighting. Keep telling the truth. And remember, you are never alone. There are so many of us out here, so many survivors, so many believers, so many fighters. We are with you, always. Now go. Leave that comment. The word believed. Let me know you heard me. Let me know this mattered. Subscribe if you have not already. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs it. And come back tomorrow for another story, another truth, another fight worth fighting. I will be here, telling these stories, honoring these survivors, standing with the children, until my last breath. That is my promise. That is my purpose. That is my way of making amends for all the years I did not see. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Now go take care of each other and take care of the children. They are counting on us.